I mean, what exactly is it that I'm supposed to say after a game like that that hasn't already been expressed by all of you, that hasn't already been said? Now, do I think that that game was literally rigged by the NFL? No. Okay? I don't exactly see what the positive is to doing that. I don't see their incentive. Now, was it an absolutely horrible, tragic, abysmal display by the referees? Absolutely. There is no question about it, okay? The illegal contact that was called on Darrell Baker Jr., if you ask me, listen, did he wrap his hands around his waist? Yes. Was it initiated by Amari Cooper, who literally stiff-armed Darrell Baker in the middle of a route 15 yards down the field to get a break? Yes. That is what happened. Let alone the pass interference has to be one of the most bogus calls I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, you literally take Calvin Johnson and give him a pair of stilts. He would not have been able to catch that football. There's no question about it. And I don't know if the referees had some sort of, I don't know, free voucher to X amount of visits to Deshaun Watson's masseuse if they were to give the Browns that football game. But to me, what happened at that end of that game was a travesty. It was inexplicable. And clearly, there is no good explanation for it. And I don't know how you fix that type of thing. Listen, what are the refs going to do? Write an email, make a statement? Oh, we screwed that up? It doesn't change the fact that you just completely controlled the outcome of a football game that would have put a team in the Indianapolis Colts at 4-3. And ultimately, at the end of the season, this game may end up being the difference. It may not. But in a 17-game season, every single game matters. Now, that being said, what I feel is important to point out, because a lesson I had learned in life a long time ago, and I'm a young man, listen, I don't know it all, but I thought this was a good piece of advice I was given, that when you're faced with a problem, ultimately you could look at the external forces around you and blame them for the issue, or you could take it on the chin. Because if you take it on the chin and you hold personal accountability rather, it puts you in control of the situation, as opposed to whether it's an external factor that was at fault. You're kind of helpless, right? Because if it's not your fault, there's nothing you can do to fix it. And in fighting terms, for those of you who watch the UFC, a big piece of advice a corner will always give a fighter is that you can't let it go to the judges' scorecards. You got to end the game. And the Colts did not do that. The Colts let this game get into the referee's into the referee's hands, because if I'm being honest, long before that last drive, in the first half, there were a number of moments in this game where I thought to myself that the Colts were doing everything in their power to keep the Browns in this football game, particularly when you look at the turnovers. I mean, right now, the Colts, when they win the turnover battle, as per Shane Steichen, take it from the horse's mouth, right? You see the pun right there? 3-0 when they win the turnover battle. 0-4 when they lose the turnover battle. And when you look at the way that Gardner Minshew played today, this is 2 straight weeks. Now, the turnover at the end, albeit, it's going to count as 4 on the score sheet, but they weren't going to win that game when he fumbled on the last drive, right? 3 turnovers for Gardner Minshew in this one. 3 turnovers last week. You can't win a football game that way. You can't expect to win a football game that way. And it kind of just has this feel, and there's been a number of times this year where Gardner Minshew sort of gives that Matt Ryan feel in the pocket, where every time he gets sacked, you feel like he's about to fumble the ball. And despite that, you have a game where when you look at some of the team's stats, it looks like a Colts W. I mean, the Colts had more first downs than the Browns. We won the third down battle on both sides of the football, on offense and defense. We had more rushing yards, more passing yards, more time of possession, right? We had 456 total yards of offense against a team that was playing historically good up to this point in the season. The Browns were allowing 200 yards per game going into this game against the Colts, which was by far the best in the NFL. I believe the second team in the league was the Ravens, allowing 260 per game. But again, you turn the ball over 4 times, you have a field goal that is blocked, and you commit back-breaking penalties. It's going to be tough to win a football game, period. The Colts could have won this game. They should have won this game. And the refs absolutely cost the Colts a game here, and I never complain of, oh Lord, I never complain about the refs. They cost the Colts a game here, but were they the only reason the Colts lost? If we're being honest as fans, no, right? You look at the turnovers. Last week, the defense allowed 233 yards. This week, 315 yards allowed to the Browns. That is excellent. 2 weeks in a row in terms of yardage. Excellent defensive effort. And it's weird to say because we allowed 37 in one and 39 in another, but it comes down to turnovers. You're ultimately giving the team an advantage by turning it over and giving them a short field to drive down. And some of you guys are getting on this defense for, I don't know, allowing the Browns to drive down the field late in this game. Listen, that is a bend or don't break situation. A field goal does absolutely nothing for the Browns. It's all about stopping the touchdown, which I believe the Colts would have done if not for the referees, okay? And realistically, as you get closer to the end zone without scoring, it becomes more difficult for an offense to score in a condensed field. It's much easier to score from 15 yards out as opposed to like at the 4-yard line because there's just much more space to work with. And I mean, I don't know. Again, I just don't know after a game like this exactly where to go with it. I mean, what do you guys want to do? What else is there to talk about, right? Juju Brent's injury, I mean, that's a tough one. Obviously, Darrell Baker Jr. has become a bit of a whipping pole for Colts Nation. We're going to have to see how that goes. I mean, obviously, the Browns attacked him at will on that last drive. The penalties both called on him that we all agree were bogus. So I do ask, for the sake of our team, just to be good to our guys, no one is more hurt by this than Darrell Baker Jr., all right? I ask that as fans, we take it easy on him just for today, right? And I know that some of you guys are mailing it in at 3 and 4. The Marvin Harrison Jr. talk never stops, all right? But the regular season does not end until January. We're still in October. That leaves us with 2 full months of football yet. So I refuse to mail it in. I refuse to talk about the offseason. I'm going to talk about what's in front of us right now. So I'm going to try to take a look at some of the positives, and then we could get on with our merry day, right? So before we get into all of it, just going to introduce myself real quick. My name is Justin. This right here is the Riding the Bench Coltscast. As always, I ask if you are enjoying the video, go ahead and shoot it a like. It is going to help me get out to as many Colts fans as humanly possible. Of course, if you want to stick around for the journey, and one day when the Colts are good and I'm still talking about the team, you could be a part of that. Subscribe. You'll always know when an episode will come out. And yeah, that's pretty much it, particularly returning listeners. If you keep coming back and you haven't subscribed yet, you're really the ones I'm looking at. What exactly are we waiting for here, right? So without further ado, I'm going to try to talk about the positives just because, you know, there was a lot of good things to take from this game. I mean, obviously the turnover is horrific, but a lot of positives, right? A big story coming into the game was the loss of Grover Stewart. Obviously, Anthony Richardson with the shoulder. We hate to see that. But Grover Stewart was the consummate run stopper right there, and it was kind of hard to project how the Colts were going to do against the run in this football game, given that we had been so good up to this point. We just know how important of a piece he was to that puzzle. But the run defense, minus that one run by Jerome Ford in the beginning of the game, was absolutely locked down. I mean, the linebacker core between Leonard, Speed, Zaire Franklin, of course, just looked really, really good in run protection. As a unit, Kenny Moore coming up, making a lot of great tackles as well. Dio and Dangbo, a great day too. I mean, again, positives on the defense, really all around. How about coming into this game? I said the Colts have to stick to the run. Last week, there was too much talk about Jacksonville coming out, and you know, Shane Steichen was like, oh man, well, you know, they put us in a situation where they forced us away from the run. I don't want to hear that crap. And you know what? Kudos to Steichen coming into a game like this where the Browns defense, who's spectacular, particularly the run defense. He said, hell, we're going to force you to make us go away from the run. We're not going to just look at the way your front and how many guys you have in the box and kind of take ourselves out of it before you do. And sure enough, just as I suspected, they couldn't stop the Colts running game really much at all. They obviously didn't get gashed like the Titans did, another team that had a great run defense. But ultimately, the Colts were able to run the ball very, very efficiently. And look at how well we were able to move the ball given that. The Colts can run the football like that and better against any football team in the NFL if they commit to it early, they stick to it, and they're stubborn about it. That's what they can do, right? At the end of the day, the Colts have to do what they're built to do, which is what they did in this game, right? Julian Blackmon, Rodney Thomas, I thought they both looked excellent at safety today. I mean, just Julian Blackmon, I felt was in on all types of plays. Kept seeing him. Rodney Thomas, the way he was able to swat that one out of Njoku's hands at the end when that was almost a touchdown. I mean, what a spectacular effort by Rodney Thomas. Loved what I saw out of the safeties. Alec Pierce, his confidence has been visibly growing, right? Big time catches again this week. All the talk about his hands early in the season. This is why I always tell you guys to not overreact. I tell you guys, be careful and see things out because you might end up looking like a fool. Alec Pierce is really looking good in the role that he has on this team right now, which is just to come up with catches like he was able to come up with today. Obviously, we cannot say enough about what Josh Downs has been able to do. He's getting better and better by the week. Now, listen, those are the positives of the game, right? I mean, you know, what else is there to say? My one ending note, I will say right now, can the Colts please make a call and just inquire about what it might take to bring in a Patrick Surtain Jr.? The Broncos are listening to calls for everybody. I know this is unrelated to the game, but in a game like this, I can't help but look at this type of thing just because, hell, I have no excuse. I just want to talk about it. Please see what it takes. I'd be willing to give up a significant amount of draft capital to bring a guy like him on. Guys like Patrick Surtain Jr. don't become available every single day. The idea of him and Juju Brents to me is spectacular. It takes something that we view as an issue on this team and turns it into a strength, okay? What that has to do with the Browns game, I don't know. I just don't know what else to say. So I'm curious what you guys think. Obviously, we all think it was a robbery, but am I alone in the fact that I think that it's not irresponsible per se, but somewhat of a loser's mentality to just pin this thing on the refs? I mean, the Colts turned the ball over 3 times. I know it was 4 times. I'm not counting the one on the final drive with like 8 seconds left. I'm not counting it. The Colts turned it over 3 times. We put the Browns in a position to drop 20 in the second quarter. That wasn't the refs. That was the Colts. And the Colts allowed the refs to egregiously, make no mistake about it, egregiously determine the outcome of this game. But regardless, the Colts should have won this one, and it should have never been in a position for the refs to decide it. I mean, that's all I got. Is there anything else to say? I don't know, but we're going to end it right there. So until next time, my name is Justin. This right here is the Ride on the Bench Colts cast, and for fuck's sake, go Colts.